I grew up on a 26-acre horse farm out in rural Ohio. Growing up I was a loner and preferred reading books to talking to people. Only ever had a few girlfriends and didn't really put the effort in to actually have a relationship with much of anyone besides a few close friends. My parents got divorced when I was young. I lived with my mom and saw dad every other weekend. This did have an effect on me growing up, mainly that I had a hard time knowing what a healthy relationship looked like, and didn't really have time with dad to have a healthy male role model. Mom had a series of boyfriends, some of which were physically abusive to my brother, and I remember getting backhanded across a room at 10 by one of them, or belted anytime anything at all was out of order. Another one used glue traps for the mice in the garage and made us watch when he'd cut them off the traps, which he'd do by cutting all their legs off before throwing the still living legless mouse in the trash can. I learned very quickly to just keep my mouth shut and act generally pleasant, because anything else might get me punished, usually hit. This also made me develop an unhealthy attitude of just grin and bear it, don't have issues, and if people were bad to me I'd just take it. Whenever I could I would recess into myself in my books. I was a voracious reader and had over 1,000 books on 5 double-stacked bookshelves in my bedroom. I'd hide in there in the winter once all the chores were done. Anytime the weather was good enough I'd be outside, reading in the forest, out in the hayfield, and spending a lot of time over in the old cemetery across our field. It was beautiful, but looking back, probably not the most healthy lifestyle. Sorry for the backdrop dump. But through some therapy I've come to realize that my upbringing put me in a vulnerable spot for staying with an abusive partner. My hang-ups and coping mechanisms just led me to tolerate a lot of intolerable behavior from people. Elle and I met when we were in our mid-teens and hit it off right off the bat. She was one of those mid-0s quirky girls, writing weird poetry, yelling spork, all the standard stuff at the time, and decently attractive with curly hair. She came up and challenged me to an air hockey game, and you know how the rest of that story goes. We dated pretty much exclusively for the next 7 years. Finished high school together, went to the same college, even got the same scholarship to attend the same local state college. We had our ups and downs, but I put that down just how relationships must be. She was erratic at the best of times, tried isolating me from the few friends I had because they were jealous of her taking all my time. She'd cry over the smallest stuff, hit me when she was mad over things I had nothing to do with, and just generally pester me to shower her with love. She needed constant validation from everyone around her, and wasn't too shy about trying to get it. I put up with all this because she was my first real girlfriend, and she was great at just minimizing her bad behavior into something I was just too dumb to get. I just think she was being irrational, but would put up with it to get back to our normal lives. College was where the more obvious red flags started coming. Within a few months of her coming to college, she was constantly hanging around with other dudes in our dorm. I would ask if we were still good and get positive answers, but then find her sitting on some guy's lap in his room later that same night. Multiple times I caught her making out with randoms and just generally behaving inappropriately with guys. After I told her everything I'd seen and threatened to break up with her if she didn't tell me the truth, it came out that she'd given one other guy oral, which she described in excruciating detail. She said she was obsessed with him because, no lie, he looks like the guy from Napoleon Dynamite and is just really hot. Yes, should have ended everything we had right there for that comment alone, but we'd been together for nearly 5 years at that point, so I thought we could fix things and reconcile. I confronted the guy, she cut off contact, and things got better for a bit. I ended up getting a decent job with a local construction company my junior year of college and saved up enough in 6 months to make a down payment on a house. This was in 2008 in an older steel town, so housing values were pretty much rock bottom. Let me know in the comments section what you're thinking right now. I talked it over with Elle and we decided to buy a house fairly close to our school and just start our life together while we finished up college. We also got engaged shortly after moving in. I thought that by removing her from the co-ed dorm I'd fix her cheating issues, and it really did seem to work for a bit. All in all, it seemed like life was looking up. There were some good years for a while. She got a job selling books, then went on for a graduate degree. Actually, she tried for 4 different graduate degrees but kept quitting because they weren't what she wanted to do. I paid for the ones she couldn't get a scholarship or student loans for and just generally supported her in her decisions. We got a dog and some cats. I kept working at that same construction job for a boss I hated, but it paid the bills. Got married in 2010 when we were 23. Kids, don't get married young. You don't know what a good relationship is yet. I want to get across here that it was exactly what I thought the good life was. I'd get up early, give her a kiss, and head into work, where I'd occasionally get reprimanded for not reading my boss's mind. I'd do drafting and job takeoffs, or go to a job site and wear myself out doing whatever work they needed. Then I'd come home, let the dog out, and listen to me talk about her day. If I complained about my day, I wasn't being manly enough and was just adding to her stress, so I'd just start making dinner or mowing the lawn. Whatever. Rinse and repeat. I thought this was completely normal and maybe even better than average. The wheels really started to come off, though I didn't know it for a while, when Elle got a new job with a local energy company doing mapping. She was finally making more than minimum wage, and was only there for a few months before her boss took notice of her. I don't think it was 4 months before suddenly she got a job as a process assistant in a large nearby city, which was a 2-hour drive for her. I'm not sure of the details, but within those same few months she started an emotional and eventual physical affair with her new boss. Still don't know what to think of this, since the guy was 30 years older than her, was recently separated from his wife and was literally living in his mom's basement. I noticed she was withdrawing more than usual from the relationship, but figured it was the stress from a big corporate job and the drive. I tried putting in more effort, surprising her with gifts and stuff, but nothing really landed. Again, I just figured she'd get used to the work and things would go back to normal. In January 2013, we moved to Cleveland to be closer to her work. I found a new and much better job. We got a really nice place for less than market price, and everything was shiny again. Sure, she had to work really late quite often, but you know, that's corporate. She'd gotten a pay raise for her excellent work. Elle was making new work friends and was finally coming out of her shell a bit. Elle also started going out with work friends a lot and quickly started staying out very late and coming home drunk as a skunk, which led to more than a few fights between us. Things deteriorated, and again we just settled into a new equilibrium where we talked less to each other, and when we did talk it would be the most milquetoast of topics. In December 2014 we went down to see her parents in Texas and had a great trip. It really seemed to rekindle some of those feelings we'd been missing, and it really made me realize that things were more messed up in our relationship than I thought. When we got back I had a real moment with Elle where I told her that I really had a great time and wanted to keep being as invested in each other as we were on the trip. I felt like I had a kind of epiphany where I knew we could change our relationship for the better, and I was inviting her to help me with it. She screamed, straight up looked at me with panicked eyes, stuttered, screamed, and ran away down to the basement. I followed trying to figure out just what I had said that would have led to that reaction, which led to her accusing me of cornering her in the basement. I backed off and she, through tears, tells me that she doesn't deserve love. I'm trying to ask her what this is about, get nothing from her, and we finally just go into separate rooms to calm down. The next day I tried to bring it up and she told me in no uncertain terms that none of that happened, and if I bring it up again she's leaving. Straight up denied that she freaked out, that we had even seen each other the day before. I got really suspicious that something was up after that point, but I didn't really think it was cheating, or just that she was being insecure. She'd always been very insecure in general, just never to a level that made her freak out like that. After that episode I decided that my teenage self was correct. That having a roommate who is occasionally funny and sometimes slept with me was about as good a relationship as I would ever get. I had a prejudice against divorce after seeing how my mom's life had turned out afterward, so I decided I'd just make this work however I could. The staying out, drinking, and random outbursts kept going on her end, and I decided to just never bring up my feelings unless she asked directly. Meanwhile, I decided to work on myself first, to be a better, more interesting partner. I started building up my home gym, working out, got into backpacking and woodworking, things that I always kind of liked but never had time for. Elle had complained that I had no hobbies, and wasn't interesting enough for her around this time. If you're enjoying the video, don't forget to like and subscribe. So I took her at her word that this would help more than actually talking about our issues. This is one of the few good things that came out of the relationship, as I'm still pretty physically fit and look much better than ever before in my life. Plus my woodworking and turning have turned into a lot of useful life skills. Today was in April of 2015. She came home from a night out with friends insanely drunk. I'm still not sure how she made it home. She threw up multiple times while I held her hair, then passed out on the floor by the toilet. She was so drunk she would breathe in these odd gasps, and I thought she was just going to stop breathing at one point. I thought about calling an ambulance but just decided to wait it out a bit. She had her phone beside her on the floor and it kept getting texts, which I ignored for a while. Finally, I thought it was probably someone checking to see if she got home okay, so I decided to open it with her thumbprint and respond. The texts are all from her boss, and the last one was something along the lines of "You only went home because you're mad I made you stop. We can't do it in the office anymore, F will catch us." I immediately understand what is happening and feel like the stupidest dude ever that I didn't put it together at any point in the last 2-3 years. I still feel dumb about it. We were young, but that's no excuse to be so naive and checked out about your marriage. I had always just assumed we had grown distant, but I had never once thought of cheating on her and just assumed she felt the same way. I start going through all her texts with him and see that this has been going on for a while, though it's unclear when it went from being an E instead of a good working relationship, and then again on when the physical stuff started. I did find a message from earlier that same night where they were talking about the next time they'd meet up, just a week or so away. I decided that if I tell her anything at this point she's going to flip it around into me snooping and misreading, or misremembering what I read since I have a terrible memory. Instead of confronting her, I go out and buy a voice recorder and spend a few days placing it in her car before work to find a good hidden spot and test how long it can record for. I also scope out where they're planning on meeting up so I can find a day off. The day before the meetup she had told me she needed to go to a separate nearby town for work, and that she'd be late coming home. I tell her it's fine, and take your time coming home. Inside I was all nerves, but apparently held it together enough to keep her from being suspicious. The hours pass, then around 6 p.m. I head out and drive to a spot near the bar they're meeting at and wham, there they are. both in her car, pawing each other and making out. I just drove away, went home, had some shots and cried. She came home later that night and I didn't say anything about it, just made us some dinner. She was all bubbly about how well her meeting had gone, thanked me for being understanding. After she went to bed I went out and got the voice recorder and listened through it, and heard her begging to. Thanks for watching and check out part 2 for the rest of the story. Part 2 coming soon.